Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everyone here, everyone at home. Good evening. So we are starting one more Allan Kardec Spiritist group of New Zealand studies of Wednesday studies. Um, so we, for those who are coming for the first time or that are watching us from home for the first time, usually on Wednesday we meet in here. We do our studies in English. So we read a little bit of the spirit of the Gospel, a little bit of the Spiritist group, the Spiritist book, and we comment on. So we just discuss, and usually we have now the study also going live on our Instagram and our YouTube channel and Facebook. And we don't show people, so for you there is a home. You can see that we show the slides, and most of the time Mani is also controlling from home. So thank you, Mani, for that work. That he can put the slides up. That is a bit easier for people that are at home that can read. Otherwise, you can always access Kardecpedia to get the books in English or in Portuguese to accompany also as we read here. And we usually start then the group with a little reading, do our initial prayer, do the studying, the discussing, and then in the end we do a vibration. So either a collective healing, when we have enough people, we can do also an individual passive. So individual, what do we call in English? Imposition of hands. But yeah, spiritual treatment.
Yeah.
Spiritual treatment. So today we can you do the pass? Yeah. So we can do today an individual one. So in the end, when we start doing we do a collective vibration, and then we take a few moments to do an individual treatment. So we'll ask everyone who wants to have. So if you're feeling you need some special attention today, we can do the spiritual treatment. But just remember that just being here in the room, and obviously if we vibrate in the same level, we collect also the good energies, the good vibrations. We leave home hopefully a little lighter than we arrived. And then we'll do our final prayer. And we also have some water that we leave there magnetizing during the study that we drink before we go home. And then in the end, we also usually have a little chat outside, just leaving space for the spirituality to carry on the work here in the room. If you're home, you can always put also some water aside to get magnetized if you want to. And you can also send questions or comments on the chats. Not all the time we're able to read during the study, but we always go back and respond after if there's any questions. And usually on Wednesdays we do then the study, and the last Wednesday of the month we do a lecture. So this month the lecture will be in English, and next month in Portuguese, so every other month in Portuguese, every other month in English. So this month we are swapping it and doing in English, just because next month we will have someone that is visiting from Brazil, and he will do a lecture in Portuguese. So we'll take advantage of his visit, and it's going to be really nice lecture. We're going to talk more about it when we have more days for the workshop we're going to do also. So we'll update our Facebook and talk about it also here in the group. Usually on Mondays we do our mediumship group, mediumship studies. We have also an EDGE, so Estudos Sistematizados da Doutrina Espírita, going on Thursdays online, and we are going back to having our children and youth studies on Sundays from the last Sunday,
31st of July.
last Sunday of July, yes.
No, the last Sunday, last day of
Yeah.
July.
The last day of July.
Yes.
We're gonna go back to that. So if anyone has children, we now have children between 6 and 12 years old. But if your child is a little older or younger than that, maybe just have a chat with me or Alcione or Renato.
Yeah.
Right, those are all the messages.
In summary of everything.
So we're going to start by reading a little text from Living Spring, so Fonte Viva, called The Reward. Peter said to him, "We have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us?" Matthew 19:27. The apostles' question expresses the attitude of many souls regarding their religion. Someone devotes him or herself to a certain circle of faith and immediately asks, "What is in it for me?" The answer, however, comes silently through the course of his or her own life. What does the ripened grain receive after the harvest? The meal that helps refine it. What reward is given to the white purified flour? The yeast that transforms it for general usefulness. What is the loaf's reward after being baked? The blessing of being of service. Christians are not made to be living adornments for the world, but to help regenerate and sanctify life. Long ago, when kings and queens received the spoils of the defeated, they would use them to surround themselves with gratifications of a physical nature, with which they hasten their death. In Christ, however, the picture is otherwise. In Him, we are victorious and we become brothers and sisters of all of those who share life with us, bearing in mind the obligation to be helpful and useful to them. Simon Peter, who wanted to know what his reward would be for following the gospel, experienced firsthand the need for self-sacrifice. The more he grew in faith, the greater the testimonies of love for humankind that the world required of him. The more knowledge he acquired, the more the charity that was expected of him up to the ultimate sacrifice. Thus, if due to your devotion to Jesus you have broken the bonds that used to hold you to the lower levels of life, remember that, for your happiness, heaven has given you the honor of helping, the privilege of understanding, and the glory of serving. Thank you. Music. The assistant zone. So we're gonna do our initial prayer. We now, after a long day of rain, of this confusing wet weather, lots of wind, a day of work, we sit here or at home, trying to focus and unwind and be present for the study of tonight. We ask for our guides, our friendly spirituality that is part of this Spiritist group, that is part of our lives and routines. We ask for your guidance, your permission to start one more study group. We ask that you guide us to one more couple hours of learning. We thank you for your presence, not only tonight on this study, but also in our lives, constantly guiding, blessing us, being patient with our mistakes, with our imperfections, with our general impatience. We thank you, God, for the opportunity of being here, reunited, studying and learning together, learning with each other some more about this amazing doctrine that life has showed us in the course of so many years, so many centuries here on earth. We are happy to be part of this community here in New Zealand, happy to be in New Zealand, happy to have the opportunity of gaining some knowledge by leaving our comfort zone in our home country and still managing to retain the bonds of love with our friends or family that live in different parts of the world. We ask for your blessings so we can continue to learn and spread the message of Spiritism whenever people want to hear, whenever people are curious about, that we may be ready to talk about, we may be ready to listen, we may be ready to not only study, but also to live the message. Thank you, Sophie. So we are on chapter 26 of the Gospel. So last week we just had chapter 20, we just read chapter 25, the end of chapter 25, right? Yeah, because it was on the day. So last week we just read the other half of the Seek and You Shall Find, so that's chapter 25. Does anyone want to comment or remind us a little bit about what we talked last week? No?
Yeah, the seek and we shall find is about we can ask, we can seek for the things that we want, but if we ask the superior spirits, if we ask Jesus or God, we can only ask for spiritual things, because if you ask for material things, doesn't make any sense. So many times we are praying and we want the problems to be solved. We are going to receive the things that we need, but not always the things that we want. So we can seek and we can ask, but we need to know what we should ask or what we should seek, because something along those lines.
Yeah,
but we also have that.
Yeah, we also talk about it. The majority of time, people actually ask God or the friendly spirituality for the fish instead of how to learn how to fish, right? In relation to that parable. So it's if you ask God for more patience, for being more calm, He's gonna put probably a lot of people around you. They're very nervous, they're very agitated. So you can actually practice the attribute that you want to have it. So this is usually it works on that way. You just wake up having a skill, an attribute that you didn't have the night before, you know. So everything is going to be through learning. And we also talk about how it's important when you want to evolve your morals and your intellectuals. You create little habits, and through a discipline of having them every day, you become them. You learn how to evolve yourself, and you learn how to become better, how to evolve yourself, right? Again, it's not an instant you open a pack, there we go. Now, wise and a patience, no. Yeah, you don't. It's not matrix that we downloaded. So we need to be conscious of that. When we ask, we understand we shall receive. But you should also pay attention on what you're asking.
It would be great if you could download some patience, a transfusion of patience.
And do our part as well, because we can, if we just ask but we don't know, we don't do what we need to do to achieve what we want, then nothing's gonna happen. We've got to do our part as well. So it mentioned the law of progress and law of labor. So we as the spirits of evolution, we have to work. We have to do things in order to progress. We're not going to progress just by asking.
Good. So we're going now into chapter 26, which is give freely what you have received freely.
I think we did the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We
We
did
did-
2 topics already.
We did the gift of healing and paid prayers,
Yes.
which talks about it again, as the title say, you give it free what you receive for free. So you don't charge for any charity or for any kindness or any ways, that your spirits evolve to help other people. And talks about how you should not charge for any praise or anything because you don't control the spirits. You don't control them. They're not gonna come to you when you want them or when someone paid for it. So you should be very cautious around that. And we are on item 5, which is coming very soon. There we go.
Good. Sorry, I read the week before. Yeah, but anyways, we started this chapter last week, and now going on the second half. So, does anyone want to read?
I can read. So the merchants expelled from the temple. Item 5. They then come to Jerusalem, and Jesus, having entered the temple, began to expel those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money chargers and the seats of those who were selling those. And he allowed no one to carry any wares through the temple. He also told them, saying, "It's not my house to be called a house of prayer for all the nations, but you have made it a den of thieves." When the chief priests heard this, they sought a means to kill him, for they feared him because all the people were taken by wonder at his doctrine.
Marcus?
Marcus 11:15, 18, and Matthew
Yeah.
6. Jesus expelled the merchants from the temple, thereby condemning the selling of holy things under any form whatsoever. God sells neither divine blessings, forgiveness, nor entry into the kingdom of heaven. Humans, therefore, have no right to require payment for them.
Do you have this comment on this before
Yeah.
this time?
So it's very self-explanatory. As we talk about it, how mediumship should not be charged, and how you should give it for free, what you receive it for free. So Jesus just entered the temple, and he obviously wasn't super happy about it. So he just expelled them and put them out, making the place a place of bless, a place of charity, right?
Yeah, I think it's quite maybe today maybe for us doesn't make as much sense as once was to say there are no God sells neither the divine blessings or the items or whatever is in there. So there is no if it is a place that people go to pray, we shouldn't be selling those items as they are blessed or charging for something that comes for free, right? It's not right. So I think even though it makes a lot of sense for us today, that can you imagine someone actually selling things inside of a spirit center for some sort of profit and for some sort of gain? As natural, it's not really. I don't think we see it that way, especially if it is, and it's talking about what they were selling about doves and some sort of tokens and things that people could take home that were blessed, that had some sort of meaning that would bring them luck and things like that. So that type of superstition of charms and doesn't make sense on rationalized faith. Tell us that it's not an object that is going to change our luck or is going to change our life. Adoring objects or pieces, posters, or maybe it can have a meaning towards someone or remind you of something, but that we know that whatever is in the poster, whatever is the token, that it shouldn't mean that much to us, that it doesn't really make a difference having the object or not, or having a ritual or not, that our faith should be there regardless of what we see or what we have in our home. So, and that when we, now in the spirit, we can think of several things that are sold right inside of a spiritual center. Roberta just bought a book from us. And that obviously is passing on the knowledge so people have access. And when a spiritual center usually requires power and rent, and so that there is never profit involved. And for example, in our case, when we also try and work with donations, so we always have something going on with the money that might be left over for some reason, that we're also sharing this money that comes through donations, that comes from our Festa Junina, you know, so there is an actual purpose to events or things being sold, is to keep the work going on, right? So it's very different from maybe what would happen in the past, that or maybe still happen in other religions, you know, that people sell things for some sort of profit, or to pay someone's salary, and etc. So it's can be, if you look into it more deeply, it can be a quite controversial topic.
Yeah, we gotta learn how to separate the material things from the spiritual ones. So, because sometimes people buy something that can be sold as something spiritual that will help with your evolution, or if you pay that much money, when you pass away, you have a peace in heaven or something like that. So that also may take from the person the responsibility. So I gave the money, so I don't need to do anything. I gave the money for someone to pray for me when was happening in the past. I'm not sure it happens nowadays. So if someone else prayed for me, it's not my responsibility. With money, I can buy my progress. With money, I can buy my evolution or a good place when I pass away. But for spiritual things, we have to do our work. Nobody can't delegate, say, hi, Carol, please help me to be more patient. Okay, you do the work, okay, and I'm delegating to you. No, it's individual. So we know that sometimes we pray for other people, yeah, that may help, but the person needs to do their own work in order to deal with the imperfections, with the vices and everything. So religion can help, everything that we learn can help, but we need to apply ourselves and not give it to others this responsibility. Any comments on that or questions?
No, I think just, yeah.
Good. Any comments?
It makes sense to me.
We do have cases where people, some sort of religion organization, so they call, that you actually provide them money and you are free of your sins or any bad things that you do, right? So people go there, they give money, they go back home and they are a terrible person, and
We
they
are all
believe
over
I'm
here.
okay, I can do that because I just give money and I'm fine, right?
Not that easy. No?
Definitely not.
And I think it's not even just being in church, right? There's lots of people that do that because they think they're doing charity. They
Yeah.
donate money all the time. They, oh, I'm a good person. I'm also doing charity. But what about charity starts at home, right? Starts with the people that we know. It's not giving money away is the easy part, right?
We, yes.
For me, it's more like it's a basic common sense.
Yeah.
It's like when you have kids, you try to teach them to do the right things. So they will learn by, like falling again and trying
Example.
again, by trying and error
Yeah.
to get better. So why don't we apply as
Yeah.
an adult?
Just, yeah.
Continue applying that towards your life for everything.
Yeah.
To be a better person, to be a better colleague, to be a better friend, to be a better mom, a better dad, a better person. So if you want to achieve goals that you're going to become a person that you more, even if you become more calm to yourself, and you start to realize around yourself that you actually can stop, look, and choose a better path for you and the others around. So it's kind of a basic common sense how to be a better human being.
It's practice.
We always mention, I always mention that it's interesting how money is deep inside of thinking and we don't notice that. It's when you ask other people, what would you do if you win the lotto? And the first answer is always, I would do so good and I'll help charity, donate money. If you go to a charity place right now and you ask them, is there anything that I can do? They'll give you a mop and say, can you please clean the floor? That's it.
It's
You do it.
charity.
You do not wait for this moment that, it's harder than get struck by a lightning to happen. So you can actually go and do it. You can do it right now, right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mediumship free of charge. Item 7. Modern mediums. Because the disciples also possess mediumship, also have received a free gift from God, that of being the interpreters of spirit for the instructions of humankind, to show them the pathway to the good and to lead them to faith, and not to sell them words that do not belong to them, because they are not the product of their personal conception, research, or personal labor. God wills for the light to reach everybody. God does not will for the poorest person to be disinherited from it, or to be kept from its saying. I do not have faith because I could not pay for it. I could not have the consolation of receiving the encouragement and the display of affection of those who are weak for, because I'm poor. That is why leadership is not a privilege and is found everywhere. To receive payment for this practice, will those to be divert it from the providential purpose. Item 8. All those who know the conditions in which good spirits communicate and their aversion for anything that may have a selfish interest, and who knows how little it takes to keep them away, can never believe that higher order spirits are the disposal of the first person who comes along and evokes them for a price at a mediumistic session. Play common sense, reject such a thought. Would it not be also, would it not also be a profanation to evoke for the price of silver the beings who we respect or who we dear to us? Undoubtedly, one can obtain manifestations this way, but who could guarantee their authenticity? Frivolous, deceitful, and cunning spirits, and a whole multitude of unscrupulous, low-ordered spirits will always show up and are always ready to respond to any questions asked them, with no regards for the truth. Thus, those who desire serious communication must first ask for them seriously, after certifying the nature of the sympathies of the medium with the beings of the spirit world. Now, the first condition for attracting the benevolence of good spirits is humility, devotion, selflessness. Thank you. And complete moral and material disinterest.
Oh, you go.
Oh yes, me. Sorry. I don't need to read it. Well, it's very much what we just talked. Bringing to a more deeper level the mediumship itself, saying us as a gift from God. It was given to us to produce charity, to produce good, not to produce money, right? So the intention, people who have mediumship, which it's a very common thing to find, it is everywhere. They're not better than other people. Potentially, they could even be worse, because it was giving them a gift so they can actually work harder and do better and do more charity and reach others, right? And could even help all of those. So, and it talks about a lot, something that we have been discussing actually on the spiritual, about your vibration and what spirits you engage with. So depending on the person's morals and intellectual, they will have a certain type of friends, right? Don't we say that phrase? Tell me who your friends are, and I'll
Tell
who your friends with.
Tell me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are.
Yeah. So it's very similar, right? If your vibration will communicate to a certain type of spirits, level of spirits. So, yeah. What else?
I think quite interesting. So this first couple items talk about how mediumship comes for free, right? So you don't expect people to. This is not something people are able to pay for. A skill that you can purchase or something that you need to have money to in order to possess. So poor, rich, good. Independent of where the spirit sits in this life, mediumship is not something that you can pinpoint that is a certain race or a certain gender or a certain class of incarnated spirits that will possess. It's everywhere. So it's not a matter of really wanting or, but it's a matter of how much we are connected to our spiritual side, how much we study, and everybody possesses it. It's up to us to be, like Togo says, right, to work on it, to be able to use it properly. But we all have it, and so the last two items we'll talk about the exchange of money for the gift, right? But I thought it was quite interesting talking about how you don't have to have certain qualities, or in this case, talks about money, right? That it comes to you for free. So why should you give it for to give it to someone, or expect someone to give you money for it if you're using that gift that has been gifted to you for no reason whatsoever, actually. So yeah, I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, something important to remember is that we are all mediums. So the Spiritists bring us this information. Of course, the levels are very different, and there are the ostensive, yes, mediums that they can actually see spirits here, or they have their communication is the level is way higher. But in a way, we are all mediums. And that's last. Oh, can you go to the just before number 9? Yeah, that one. So that's therefore, if we are all medium, we have to be careful with the influence that we are receiving. So regardless if we believe or not, regardless if we pay attention or not, the spirits are around us everywhere. They are here, they are when you go home, at work, in the traffic, everywhere there are spirits. And so knowing that, or even not knowing that, we'll be attracting different spirits in different levels, in different vibrations, as Togun was saying. And in the last phrase there it says, the first condition for attracting. So if we want to attract spirits, good spirits, so the first condition for attracting the benevolence of good spirits is humility. So our humility, devotion, self, that word that's hard to pronounce, and complete moral and material disinterest. So we're not focused or interested in the material side of things. So yeah, it's up to us which spirits we are attracting during our day, during our life, and it's very important for us to pay attention in that as well and be aware. We have the pen.
No, it's just it's interesting, and of course we are not perfect. Nobody is perfect. Our planet is not yet for that. We have a lot of to learn. But everybody here, I think, knows that like when you start a day and for some reason it didn't start as good. But if you focus on the bad side, it's gonna end up
Even worse.
Even worse. So
Yeah.
if you, it's because of that energy that you keep capturing and attracting to you. So if you try, it's not difficult. It's not easy as well, but it's not also difficult. So you try to concentrate into a prayer and try to minimize that and try to repel all those bad energies. You ended up in a better place in the end of the day because of the things that you're attracting.
Yeah, definitely.
No? Anything? So maybe, sorry.
No, just some practice that I changed throughout time was I usually started my day trying to predict how it would be in terms of, oh, this happened, it's a good thing, or this happens a bad thing, I know it will be one of those days. And I was trying to prove myself right. So if it started with a bad thing, it's almost like I wanted all the bad things to happen. So that would confirm my prediction. And then after a while, I decided to play a different game. Because, something not so nice happened. So my challenge is to change how the day will go. That worked.
Good. See, it is.
Often.
It takes practice. It's not, yeah, as I say, it's not that easy, but it's
Habits.
also not, it's a habit.
It's a
You
mind
get-
exercise.
It is.
It's an interesting thing that the fact that you just woke up there is so many good things already happening to you. You woke up in a planet, you have air, you have water, you have weather, you have a roof, you have food, you have life, you have organs, you have legs, you have hands. I can keep going. No matter how many bad things you may call will happen in a day, you still have a gigantic, enormous amount of good things around you. Pay attention to it. I was, my flatmate always jokes and say that his dog has a bucket, and sometimes the dog is very stressed and fill up the bucket, and he can't take it anymore. And one day I was thinking about it, and sometimes he feels stressed about work, and I say, why don't you practice a lot of positive things? See positive things that happen in your day when you wake up. And he goes, what for? I say, fill up your bucket. Then when you have something bad, well, it's full now. What are you going to put in there? There's no space for bad, right?
Good one. Yeah. Cool.
The dog is also practiced.
Yeah.
Do you want to read more?
Okay. I was going to say that this is an exercise in, we had a mental health lecture at work last month, and one of the tricks that she was teaching us was said, obviously, it's always going to be about point of view, right? So the more you see things, negative things, the more negative things you're going to see. So it's the focus. So how do we change the focus of that? And she was saying, like, small words that we use in our day that change the focus of everything. When you start a day by saying, I have so much work to do today. It sounds like it's impossible. It sounds like you're never going to finish, and you know you're not going to accomplish. So you start the day defeated, right? So when you say, I have some work to do today, or I have a little work to do today, it sounds like it's something manageable. It sounds like it's something that you can do today, just for today. I'll actually do my job and leave to go home feeling like I did what I was supposed to do, not carrying that big weight of, and I have to come back tomorrow, and it's never going to be enough. So I'm going to keep coming back, and it's too much, it's overwhelming. So if everything in our lives is like that, right? When we say like, oh, I'm having such a bad day, it's like, oh, I had a complicated hour, but we don't know how the rest of the day is going to turn out, right? So that exercise of like, oh, it's my challenge is to turn this around. It starts with small steps, and so we have been practicing that in the office quite a bit. When one of the people that sit with me in the HR office say like, oh, this was really bad. I said, no, this was challenging. This was different. This changed my routine. And so we keep saying that to each other, like changing it, how much it changed our day, our routine, the jokes that we make in the office, the way we treat the curveballs and small things that someone said one day.
To help me remind of the way says, where focus goes, energy flows.
Yeah, true. That's a good sentence. Does anyone want to read? We give a little break. Yeah.
Let's do that.
You have some more?
I can read. Yeah.
So we just read the
Number
last
9,
one,
yeah.
to the repeat, yeah.
Alongside the moral issue, a no less important consideration presents itself in connection with the very nature of the faculty. Mediumship could not be, nor will it ever be, a profession, not only because it could be morally discredited and immediately compared with fortune telling, but because a material obstacle is opposed to it. It is an essentially transitory, fleeting, and changeable faculty, whose permanence no one can count on. Therefore, it would always be a very uncertain resource to be exploited because it could fail at the moment in which it would be most necessary. A different matter altogether is a talent acquired through study and work, in which, for that very reason, is an asset from which it is naturally permitted to make a profit. Mediumship, however, is neither an art nor a talent, and that's why it cannot be made into a profession. It does not exist except through the concourse of spirits. If the spirits are lacking, there is no longer mediumship. The aptitude may persist, but the practice is annulled. Thus, there is not one medium in the world who could guarantee the obtainment of this high spirit phenomenon at any given moment. Exploiting mediumship is thus to make use of something that one does not really own. To state otherwise is to deceive the person being charged. What is more, it is not they themselves that they are making use of, but the spirits, the soul of the dead, whose concourse is put up for sale. Such a thought is instinctively repugnant. It is this sort of trafficking degenerates into abuse, exploit, by charlatanism, ignorance, credulity, and superstition that motivates Moses' prohibition. Modern Spiritism, understanding the serious side of the matter through the discredits it has cast over such exploitation, has elevated mediumship to the category of being a mission. See Medium's book, chapter
28 in Heaven and Hell,
Yeah.
9, 11.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's just to complement the information for us that mediumship is not a profession, because for you to have a profession, you need control over it. And mediumship, you don't have total control, because depends on the spirit. So someone that is medium can say, right now I want spirits to come. If the spirit doesn't want to come, will not. So it's no control, and they work in a way. How can you give the money to the spirit if the spirit is talking? You can't. So you can't give the money to the person, because the person is just transmitting the information, is just communicating. And yeah, but that is a very important point. So the medium don't have control. And many times even we've seen cases like in books such as André Luiz, that someone is a medium, but then the mediumship is taken away of the medium because of the use that didn't do a good use or is not necessary, can be taken away, can be given back. So it's really no control over it. And the message is really for whoever is medium to use to do goods, as whether you're medium or not, so can be used to help. But it's always, Chico Xavier used to say, the phone rings from there to here. So the spirituality call and then we answer here. It's not the other way. We can't just call today, I want to see so-and-so that passed away. Can you come now? It's not how it works. Yeah, this is what I understood.
I think a good analogy for us to remember is that imagine you are a PhD teacher, right? A doctor, very well known and with a lot of knowledge, and you're trying to talk with someone in a high school that would just talk frivolous and would just have a childish behavior. He won't connect with them. He has better things to do. The teacher, the high level moral, intellectual person, will have better things to do than actually be there trying to teach the kid things that time or the parents should do it. So the analogy is very similar. Higher spirits will not waste their time if you are doing bad, if you're doing things that you shouldn't, if you're not having common sense, right? Like we say, as much as we like to call common sense, we will have spirits that incarnated. We will have people, we have brothers and sisters that do not see the common sense. They do have had a very different life than we had, and unfortunately, they, still need help. But some of them will know what they're doing, and they will do wrongly anyway. Another thing that we have studied so far is that spirits will answer, but not the good ones necessarily. And when someone is doing something bad, when someone's doing charlatanism, which was actually mentioned on the Medium's book, chapter 28, charlatanism, when they have these kind of behaviors, they will also have a lot of lack of morals and intellectual, so on, such as, for example, ego. So a very common practice to see a spirit that it's not so good for you, they will inflate your ego. You may have had an experience in your life before where you've been to someone who has some sort of mediumship, they claim, and they will tell you something, oh, but your life is going to be really good. They only say the good things. They only tell you what you want to hear. And then you actually get out there and say, okay, how useful is that for my life? Not really, right? And not really bringing you anywhere. How is that making you a better person? How's talking about you success in life without actually doing anything, right? So when we actually stop to think about it, you have to take yourself out of the moment and then think about it. It's potentially not something very, very useful for you, or something that only enhances your ego, what's inside you. And that is actually, again, not very useful for you to do charity or for you to evolve your morals and intellectual. Another heaven and hell, he mentions about Moses' laws where they say they prohibit people to connect with the spirits for that reason, because some of them were not prepared to it. Some of them didn't have a good morals or intellectual. So when they do connect it, they will connect it to some spirits that will influence them in a misleaded way or misguided way, and they will end up being worse than they were before. So that's one of the interpretations that they may have in it, because it was not causing a lot of good.
Yeah, the part that talks about how fluid mediumship is and how it comes and goes, and it's not like how Sonia said, it doesn't depend on the medium but on the spirits. It makes me think of Givaldo was talking once in a lecture saying like, oh, when I was much younger when this happened, and definitely he rely on the spirits to do my lectures, to go on lectures, and they would talk through me. And so I started getting used to it, started going to my lectures, and I was not prepared. I didn't study as much as I should have, and I would just arrive there, vibrate, and the words would come, and it would be amazing, and everybody would clap in the end. And then one day I arrived for the lecture, I got already prepared, and the words never came. And I just stood there, and no one came to talk. I started getting nervous, and it was a disaster. So imagine, like, obviously, I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think he relies on any mediumship to do the lectures, etc. But imagine if with someone like Givaldo, who clearly has a good connection with the spiritual world, who is used to studying and pouring himself onto the cause that we all believe, right? No one can rely on anyone else, right, for studying, for transmitting knowledge, and we can't also rely on him as a medium to tell us, to pass on the message, to believe it, to follow someone, to idolize someone. He reminds us a lot, and most of the mediums that are truly interested in passing the message of charity, of good, of the Christianism, they remind us all the time that they're just people, right? That they are passing on the Christianist message that is really straightforward and basic, and that we all know that lives inside of us. So this is what we should believe. If anything goes against the basic morals, or against our instincts, against our inner judgment, we know it's not right. So can I ask you to read just the 10? It's really short,
Yes,
just so I can finish the chapter.
Yeah, sure. Mediumship is something sacred that must be practiced in a holy and religious manner. If there is one type of mediumship that requires this attitude most completely, is the healing mediumship. Physicians provide the fruit of their study, which they have made at the price of often painful sacrifice. Magnetizers provide their own fluids, oftentimes even their help, and they may charge for their practice. Healing mediums, however, transmit the helpful fluids of good spirits, and do not have the right to sell it. Although poor, Jesus and the disciples charged nothing for the healing they obtained. We call fluids those states in which matter is even more refined than it is in the gaseous state. Gabriel, Delane, Spiritism durante a ciência. Oh, we don't need all of it. Yeah, it's just clarifying that even the mediumships that can do the healing don't charge. even Jesus never charged for it. So, and that would be something that, of course, a doctor would charge, but comes, so the cure will come from the spirit to help with the cure, and of course who is receiving the cure as well, but the medium is just the one transmitting it, it's just the instrument, it's just someone helping. So therefore no charge should be involved. So in any kind of mediumship, in any kind of spiritual manners, should not never be charged. I think that's the lesson. Is that finished, the chat?
Yeah, there is a tiny bit that maybe got cut from the slide, so I'll just read it from here. Sorry. Those who do not have the financial means to support themselves should go and seek resources somewhere else other than in mediumship, and if necessary, devote to it only the spare time they have available. Spirits will take into account their dedication and sacrifices, whereas they will avoid those who intend to use mediumship as means for material gain. So it's, I thought this was quite an important piece that it talks about, and that's an excuse that many people use to charge for the mediumship, right? So people that leave out of it, and the instruction from the Spiritist book couldn't be more straightforward. If you need to survive from something else, from another skill. If you need to work, the mediumship study needs to support yourself to survive. The mediumship studies and the dedication to that needs to come second, or needs to come on the spare time after work. It shouldn't be your primary
Source
of
of
income. Yeah. Or any source of income. Yeah, so I thought that little end was. If anyone has a quick comment, any quick comments on that?
That reminds me of the phrase I always say, from spirit, through spirit, to spirit.
Yeah,
Right?
everything in the right place, right?
That's
Let's
right.
not mix it up.
So we need to put more slides instead of.
Yeah, I'll put one more left. And then we're gonna start on C27
Oh,
as
27,
one.
yeah.
Do you want to go back to it?
No, it's okay. Done. I already wrote that. So you can go to the Spiritist book.
What is the
Chapter 9, and the slide is 051. I'll go back to top.
Up, go up, one up.
This,
Okay.
and then it's the second to last.
Yeah. It's 2C1.
9.
What's that?
9,
To see 9.
and then 051.
It's a long chapter.
51.
Yeah.
More questions.
So just had a really big question.
Oh yeah, 496.
Yeah.
So we are reading the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world. So last week we started we were still on the part that talks about guardian angels, and that's where we're going to carry on today. Do you want to start? 496?
Yeah. 496. Can spirits who abandon their words and no longer do the good, do them evil instead? Good spirits never do evil. They leave that to those who take their place, and then you blame fate for the misfortunes that overwhelm you, whereas you yourself are actually to blame.
So in the Spiritist book, usually we read one question each, so we pass, but if someone doesn't want to read, you can just pass along. Yeah. So 497. Can protector spirits leave their wards at the mercy of spirits who might harm them? there is unity among evil spirits for neutralizing the action of the good ones. But if wards would so desire, they could restore the link to their good spirit. The good spirit may find a more willing person somewhere else to help in the meantime while awaiting its ward to return.
When protector spirits allow their wards to be led astray in life, it is because they are powerless to confront malevolent spirits. It is not because they are powerless, but because they do not want to. Their wards emerge from their trials more evolved and more learned. Their protector spirits assist them with their counsels through the good thoughts they suggest, but which unfortunately are not always heeded. It is nothing but human weakness, carelessness, or pride that grants power to evil spirits. Their power over you comes solely from the fact that you do not offer them any resistance.
Are protected spirits with their words all the time? Aren't there circumstances where they may lose sight of them without abandoning them? There are circumstances in which the presence of the protected spirit acts to its word is not necessary.
Maybe we just stop for a comment and carry on. Yeah? And we go this way?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's explaining a bit more about the guardian angels or guardian spirits that we all have. So sometimes they are near to us, but sometimes they still connected to us, but they keep a distance because of our vibration level and of what we have been attracting. So we've been talking throughout this meeting about how our thoughts and our actions attract the spirits around us. So sometimes when we are around us is only spirits with negative thoughts and negative feelings, etc., the guardian angel will not be able to be so close to us. So it's up to us to try to get them close to us because that will help our lives and they will help. But they never are going to leave us altogether. Even from a distance, they will be helping anyway. So, which way?
Oh, we get this way. I think it's always going to depend on us more than the spirit that is trying to help us, right? So, like as you were saying, we're more on our vibration, on what we allow the spirits to approach us or not, and it's us and our thoughts who decide what type of company we have. So, we dictate the proximity or who is around us physically and spiritually. So, materially and spiritually, we decide who we want to hang with, right? So, I find that it's a sum up of those questions. It's not so much the spirit's decision. It's what they can do for us, right? They are always there to do good. The good spirits will never do evil. But if we don't allow them to approach us, there's nothing they can do. The only thing they can do is not giving up, be around, waiting for the moment that we will allow them to approach, right?
We did talk a lot about this familiar spirits, so-called angels, guard angels, or so-called mentors that we do have it, and they will never abandon us. They will always be with us. But like we usually say, you can only be helped if you want to be helped. So that phrase also applies for your level, your vibration, your morals, and your intellectual. Sometimes they just can't help you. Sometimes they can't reach you, or they can, but it will be so much more effort to them. So imagine how good it is, again, making the analogy of university, if you have that doctor, that PhD next to you every single day, all the time, being able to guide you and help you in your profession. Well, that happens in life. That's your mentor. That's a more elevated spirit than you are that surrounds you the whole time to help you. So why not keep yourself in a good vibration, in a good vibe, so you can always connect with them and you always receive help when you need it, right? They will not abandon you, but like it says there, you can create. We're talking about distance on the last one,
Yeah.
where it says sometimes someone asked a question asking, oh, those mentors, those guard angel, will they be distance from me? Will they ever be far away from me? And he actually, yes, but not on the way we see. The distance is not by kilometers. The distance is by the fact that you cannot connect so well because your vibrations are so low, so different than their spirit, and you actually seem to be far away from them. And again, that space in between could be fulfilled by experience of low level, of low vibration, right? Very often people think that because they don't do bad, they are good. But if you just sit at home doing nothing, you're not doing any good. That you're being part of a nature, inert. What's it called? Inertia. Yeah, you're not doing anything, so you're actually not good. You're doing bad. You're being zero, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we have to remember.
That you not do, right?
Yeah. You're also going to be blamed for the good that you could do and didn't do it.
You can read it. Well, if it's
500?
500.
500.
No, 500. 500.
Good.
Yeah, 500.
Does a time come in which a spirit no longer needs its guardian angel? Yes, when it reaches the level at which it can guide itself. Just as the time comes in which the student no longer needs the master. But this not happens on the earth. This does not
We still need a lot.
I didn't actually read that before. This time I did.
Do you want to read the next
I can read. It's quite a long one.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Some hard words there.
Oh, we'll have.
Why is the action of spirits in our lives so secretive? When they are protecting us, why don't they do so openly? If you counted on their support all the time, you would not act by yourselves and your spirit will not progress. In order for it to advance, it needs experience and it must be acquired at its own expense. It must exert its own volition. Otherwise, it would be like an infant who is not allowed to walk by itself. The action of the spirits who wish you well always occurs in such a way so as not to hamper your free will. For if you did not have any responsibility, you would not progress on the path that must lead you toward God. Since they do not see who is helping them, humans rely on their own efforts. Their guides watch over them nevertheless, and from time to time warn them of danger.
Any comments?
It's like a child. I try to teach my kids, but every day but the mom and dad try to do their best, and they don't know. I ask them to put them in the other's place, especially my older one. She's 12, so she's coming home with those old questions and all different kids' backgrounds that you can imagine. She's going to high school next year, so. And then she says, "What should I do?" If, like, what do you think you would do if you were there?
On their shoes,
On their
yeah,
shoes.
their situation.
And she stops and thinks, and she's, oh, because then makes her think and change the way she would approach things. Yeah, that would be nice, or that would not be nice. So if you don't know, I think that's the best way that you could. So the guardians, I think they treat us like that, because if
Like
you don't
kids,
try
yeah.
and you don't, fail and stand up again to walk, you're not never gonna learn.
Said before, we need to do the work.
Yes.
Mhm.
Might need guidance sometimes.
Yeah.
And they are there for that, but not to do all work for us.
It's reminding of our responsibility. It's our independence and responsibility. Nobody can do on our behalf. We can't do on other people's behalf. Sometimes with kids, we want to do on their behalf, right? No, let's do this for you. You can't do yet. So,
Yeah.
but our superior spirits, they are wise, so they don't force anything on us. They give the guidance, but we choose. We have our free will, all of us, and it's our choice always. Yeah.
I think that's why we suffer so much when we send them for school for the first time. So, they have to do by themselves.
Yeah.
And hope for the best. But with their tools and
And
let
trust,
them, yeah,
have faith.
trust, yeah.
Yeah, but I was going to say that it is for the spirits that are more involved than us, hopefully it's a bit easier because they have much more faith, right? So
Yeah.
it's not, we keep thinking like, oh, all that can go wrong, not just with children, but with anything that we don't have any control over.
Yes,
It's like so many things that can go wrong all the time, all day, that if you don't have faith, if you don't actually stop and trust that God will make sure that whatever needs to take its course will happen and it will be all right, right? But we forget about it and we try to exert control over everything. And that's where stress comes from, right? Is the difficulty of actually letting things go and believe that is something bigger than just us and our will, right? And this you have to be a much more evolved spirit to actually be watching over us here, like little children making mistakes, falling, getting up, and crying, and just saying like, "Oh, it's not fair," and actually be there for this person, still be there for the spirit, still waiting on the moment that will give them an opening to come and help, to the small spans of time that we actually listen to them, that we actually allow ourselves to be guided. So it's a work that we always need to be grateful for because it's a lot of work and it definitely takes a lot of patience, a lot of faith. Let's comments?
I think we talk about on the living spring around there. It's less about the reward that we're gonna get and more about the work that we have to do. That's potentially where we have to focus. The reward, I can tell you, if you do good, it will be more work, way more work than you have right now, right? I think it's about we have to focus on the possibilities of improving ourselves, of helping others, and the collective growth. And if you have the focus on that, then you're gonna go far.
Good. Thank you, everyone. That was
Thank
really
you.
nice. So we are gonna start our collective vibration, and sorry, we are going to say goodbye to people at home. So thank you very much for joining us. If you're at home saying goodbye, do your final prayer, and we will meet again next week for another study group. Thank you.